Why does the Torah end with a song? Not a law, not a story, not even a command, a song. Laws are written on stone. Songs, on the other hand, are engraved in the soul. Laws can accuse. Songs can inspire. Laws impose. Songs resonate. The challenge of this parsha, Haazinu, is this: will the Torah remain just an external law, or will it become your inner melody? Now, in order to go into this question, we have to consider the context. Human beings wrestle with a certain tension between two different modes of morality. External law, rules that are imposed by revelation, which are objective. I mean, they come from Hashem, but they're outside of us. And then the other mode is internal conscience, which is subjective, or at least the experience of it is subjective and personal and authentic, but it's also fragile. If we rely only on law, we risk being compliant people but without heart. If we rely only on conscience, we risk rationalizing anything. And this tension plays out in daily spiritual life also. For Jews, there's the danger of performing mitzvot by rote, ritual without presence, obligations without inner resonance. For Noahides, there is the danger of treating the 7 laws as a checklist. It's observed outwardly, but without the deeper connection to Hashem that they are meant to cultivate. Now, other religions tilt this balance all the way in the wrong direction, with very damaging effects. Some religions elevate law until it blots out the inner experience completely, where conscience is silenced and obedience replaces relationship. Other religions elevate spirit until it ignores the will of Hashem. Conscience becomes unhooked, and a person can become spiritually deaf to discipline, to the actual revealed will of God. What this parsha, Haazinu, offers is a third path. External law must not remain ritual alone, and inner spirit must not drift into illusion. The goal is resonance, that law becomes song. Conscience harmonizes with revelation. Let's understand this song and what its purpose is. It's alluded to in the previous week's parsha of Vayelech, that Hashem wanted Moses to write this down to serve as a witness. In English, it's hard to say it properly. It's like to serve as a witness against you. So the parsha begins, Haazinu hashamayim v'adabeira. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. V'tishma haaretz imrei fi. And let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Who is being brought here as witnesses but heaven and earth? Now, Rashi gives us an explanation. Why is Moses bringing heaven and earth? Moses said, I am flesh and blood. Tomorrow I'll die. And these things are actually taking place on the last day of his life. If Israel says we never accepted this covenant, who can refute them? Right? Generations come and they go. So therefore he called heaven and earth witnesses that endure forever. And I just want to make a side note because I think that it is a basic belief of almost every supersessionist religion or philosophy that they have replaced the Jews. In other words, the covenant has somehow disappeared from them and they have a new one. That was the idea, I think, behind Christianity, that this was the new Israel. And that was all well and good until the year 622 when Islam came along and said that actually we're the ones with the covenant. And that was all well and good until the 19th century when the Marxists came along and said that no, actually the vision of earth belongs to us. The fact is that heaven and earth will attest that this covenant between Israel and Hashem stands forever. And what we take from this is that external law is never private. Creation itself testifies. The moral universe that Hashem created responds to how we live. Now there's another unbelievable analogy that's made in this song. The verse says, it's Deuteronomy 32, verse 2, Yarov kamatar likhi tizal katal imrasi. May my teaching drop like rain, my speech distill like dew. When we look in the Medrash Tanhuma, we find a beautiful idea. It says there that just as rain falls on seeds, and it falls on all the seeds, and each grows according to its kind, so too the Torah descends equally, but one becomes wise, another righteous, another pious. It has different effects on the recipient. The Torah is universal, like the rain. But the harvest depends on the soil. I've seen that chrysanthemums will be different colors depending on the pH of the soil that they're planted in. So for Noahides, the covenant that is communicated first to Adam, and then to Noach, and then finally reiterated during the giving of the Torah itself. These 7 laws are seeds, and the Torah nourishes them. But each person chooses whether they grow wheat or thorns. So this goes back to the idea of ritual versus connection. Directly. Rain is given to all, but whether it yields life or weeds depends on whether we integrate it with genuine intention. In terms of the effect, at least, that it has on our lives. In the previous week's Parsha, we see in chapter 31, verse 26, take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark, and that it may be there for a witness against you. what's going on here. The Ramban tells us that the Torah itself is an eternal testimony. At first, it stands as a witness against Israel when they stray from the Torah. See, this is true leadership. This is why there never was and never will be a prophet greater than Moshe Rabbeinu, than Moses. He understood how to keep the rhythm of this thing going after his own passing. And this is the progression that we find in terms of our relationship with divine law. Stage one, law is imposed externally on us. It has to be given. It has to be communicated. There are certain things that we can figure out for ourselves. And depending on the kind of person you are, there are certain behaviors you'll never engage in because you understand naturally that this is wrong. And you'll gravitate towards other behaviors because naturally that's just how Hashem made you. But if you want to live according to Hashem's will, Hashem had to give that. He had to communicate that from the outside. So law is imposed externally at the first stage. Stage two is that once this external conscience has been given into the world, we have a witness standing against us when we fall short. It sounds negative, but actually what it means is that we always have something that we can refer to in order to come back to the right place. And stage three is that the goal of all of this is that the Torah is like a song. It becomes internalized. It started externalized, now it's internalized, so that your conscience, so that conscience itself becomes the witness within us. Now here's the arc of the message in this parsha. As we just said, we get law revealed by God. Without it, our conscience drifts. You see that societies are different, that values, there are certain human values that do cut across all cultures, but there are other ones that seem to completely be absent in one part of the world where they're present in another part of the world. So that's why we need an external revelation. It serves, again, as a witness against us, heaven and earth. The Torah itself holds us accountable. And finally, it matures into song, and conscience becomes aligned with Hashem's will, with Torah. The premise is that law is necessary. It's revealed from above. The development is that accountability is then enforced by witnesses. And the conclusion is that the highest goal is internalization. Living Torah. Not because it's imposed, but because it resonates now from within you. Think of it like this. Imagine if the Torah was sheet music. Sheet music is external, and it's precise. And it's indispensable if you want to be able to play the piece. But if you never play the piece, it's just a lifeless bunch of paper. Your life is like the performance. The same notes can be played stiffly, which is like ritual without spirit, or they can be played with depth and beauty, which is law and conscience together. And then finally, our conscience becomes that internalized melody. The goal isn't to stare at the page forever, or to improvise without foundation. I love jazz. And jazz is characterized by improvisation, by musicians doing things spontaneously that work and they weave together in just that wonderful, magical way. But the reason that they're able to do that is because they have mastered all of the basics of music theory and technique. They have a very solid foundation that they can then jump off of. And the same thing you see in art. You'll find sometimes that abstract art is amazing, and it opens up your mind to different ways of representing things. Now, if the jazz musician does not have any foundation in music, and they say, okay, we'll just improvise. So they get together and they just start making a bunch of noise that has no basis. You'll be able to tell that right away. And the same thing, there's a difference between cubism. You look at a piece by Picasso and you'll see that he's using geometric shapes to represent things that would exist in a much more analog form in the natural world. But then you look at the drawings that are made by a 3-year-old, which really just consist of taking a magic marker and scribbling on the paper just to see ink and color there. Right? There's a difference between the two things. Here we're improvising with foundation. The goal is to embody the music and to do it so deeply that it flows naturally from within. So if we look in other spiritual paths where they fail at this balance, you get the sheet music without soul. You get law that kills the spirit. And by the way, that was the accusation made by Christianity of Judaism. But don't listen to that. But then again, you get improvisation without notes, where you get spirit that loses Hashem's voice. So what Haazinu tells us is that true faith is harmony. It's a fierce, tender, and transformative message. Fierce in the sense of heaven and earth are there to remember the covenant that was originally given, whether you're abiding by it or not. It's tender on the other hand, because Torah is rain and washes over all of us equally, nourishes every seed. And it's transformative because the Torah becomes song. The external becomes the inner. Hashem does not want humanity forever policed by an external threat. That's a lower stage of our development. He wants human beings whose conscience itself testifies, souls in harmony with creation and with Him. So, some closing thoughts are that we are asked by this parsha, will the Torah remain an external law that judges you, or will it become your inner song that lifts you? Because your life is both seed and song. Hashem waters the world with Torah. What will you grow? Heaven and earth are listening. What melody will they hear from your life? And may we be blessed to move from ritual to resonance, from law to song, from external witness to inner conscience, so that our lives sing in harmony with heaven, earth, and the eternal God.